Rogan Report Podcast. Check it out.
All things Joe Rogan by day. Rogan Report Podcast by night. All day. All night. Half hour to an hour-ish episodes once a week.
The Rogan Report Podcast.
All right, Shane, welcome back to the Rogan Report, Season 1, Episode 2, Round 2.
Good to see you, Ribs.
Yeah. We recorded this episode already, and my boneheaded move, recording things is complicated with computers and such.
Oh, yeah.
And so I screwed it up, and we had the audio, but it's not great, so we're going to re-record it with the much better audio quality using the good quality mics.
Yep. Let's keep this pro.
Yeah, exactly. We want the listeners to be happy, and that's the most important thing. You know, we're happy. Thank you again for tuning in to this second episode. Hopefully you've enjoyed what you've heard so far. I remember one thing that I wanted to mention the initial time we recorded this was that we were laughing a little bit at a pretty horrific part of one of Joe's previous episodes. Chuck Palahniuk talking about an author that wrote this story about her grandfather molesting her and abusing her, and then later when she's out and finds this dead bird and kills the dead bird, she equates it to the molestation, and super horrific. And I know it's not that that's funny, but it's like sometimes for me, and I know for you as well, because we've talked about this already, when there's something so crazy like that happens, you can't help but it's like a hysterical laughter. It's not a laughter because it's funny. It's a laughter like, holy fucking shit.
Yeah, like that's crazy.
Yeah, and it's weird that our bodies do that, but definitely not a funny thing. So if you are listening to the episode and you think these guys think that it's funny that this girl's grandfather molested her, like no, of course not. That's horrific and terrible. And I would love the opportunity to punch that guy in the head.
Of course.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
That was a gross story.
That was. So busy week for Joe Rogan here from 1162 up to 1165. Tom Papa and an MMA show thrown in there. 1162 is Valentine Thomas, Montreal badass, right? She was a former lawyer. Realized she disliked the kind of rat race of living in London and working for things so she could show off to her friends what things she got, and then became a spearfisher lady.
Yep.
Is it a fisherman if it's a lady? Fisherwoman?
I'm not sure how they do that.
Fisher person.
Fisher person sounds
Although,
awkward.
Person does have the word son in it, which a lot of feminists would
this
tell you.
goes deep.
That's not acceptable. But I guess they would have to ask her what pronouns she prefers.
Yeah.
What did you think about that episode?
Oh, it's great listening to her talk about her tales of, especially that one boat incident where her and a mate were left out at sea.
Yeah,
that one got me for sure.
That was probably
creepy.
my favorite part of the episode. Didn't do the research on the boat captain, and he got them out there and ran out of gas. Yeah, and then they're in the water, and he's floating away from them, and they're like, "What the fuck? Why is our boat floating away from us?" They're like, "Oh well, I guess we'll just swim to shore," which is like 5 miles or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
I forget, but she's didn't panic. She just was like, "Hey, I'm just gonna do it. We're just gonna go." Yeah, that was a pretty crazy story. I thought that there was like the hypocrisy of activists hating against her, but then also eating commercially caught fish. That was intense. And there was a big revelation that I had that Joe also had on that episode, which was realizing that it's legal for like cruise ships to just dump their garbage into the ocean.
Oh yeah,
and that they do that as a regular practice. Did you know about that?
I had no idea.
I had no idea either. How is that legal?
Yeah, and meanwhile, we're talking about garbage patches floating around in the ocean. I mean,
yeah.
Well, there's your culprit.
Yeah, obviously that's a factor. But yeah, they just willy-nilly dump their garbage. I guess as long as it's not toxic waste. I don't know, because you're not allowed to dump toxic waste.
No.
But wouldn't like shit and plastic from garbages be toxic eventually?
It seems toxic to me.
Yeah, I don't
toxic to the sea life around.
Yeah, totally. I don't know.
That
that was crazy. All in all, a good episode. We were talking about trying to come up with some kind of way to rate them, like 4 out of 5 Rogan heads, as is his icon. I don't know if that 4 out of 5 third eyes opened.
little pyramids with the
Yeah.
the whole money thing.
Totally.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed that one. Next one was Banachek, 1163. Mentalist, spent 4 years fooling scientists who were trying to prove that telepathic powers were real. That was an awesome story.
Oh, it totally was. Yeah, and he really had his way with them.
Yeah.
Like they did all kinds of crazy stuff, like breaking into the lab and bent up every metal piece in there.
Yeah, kind of pre-bent everything.
Yeah.
It was interesting to hear about some of his tactics. Obviously, he wasn't telling all about how he did his stuff, but yeah, definitely fooled these scientists. But they really wanted to believe, and I think that's the thing about most of us is when we're at a show like that and seeing somebody do some crazy powers, we want it to be real.
Yeah.
We want to believe that someday we could have those powers, and if there's some twist of fate where we came across a radioactive spider that we could then somehow become, telepathics.
For sure. Yep.
So that was 1163. Anything else to say for Banachek?
Joe touched a lot on how exactly he's doing what he is doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like right away in the show, he kind of tried to slow him down. He said,
Right.
"You're using this fast speak thing on me, and it's tricking me, and you're glossing over things. You're speaking way too fast for me to respond to anything."
That's true. Yeah, not allowing people to kind of get their bearings and just quickly speaking and moving on to the next thing before they really have a chance to question it.
Yeah.
That was one of the keys. And he admitted, I don't think that he was really trying to trick Joe. I think that's just how he talks now because he's done this for so long that he just talks that way.
That's his natural speed.
Yeah, totally. So all in all, good episode. Would you recommend recommend it for anyone?
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially if you're interested in magic or
Yeah.
stuff like that. Definitely.
I mentioned too in the initial recording of this that I had watched that Magic for Humans. I think you said you had as well, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Great series on Netflix. 4 out of 5. Rogan third eyes opened on Magic for Humans. So check out both the Banachek 1163 and Magic for Humans on Netflix.
Absolutely.
Great show. Next one was the MMA show 39, Donald Cowboy Cerrone.
Yeah. One of my favorite fighters for sure.
Yeah, me too. Fun to watch. I love his mean mugging tactics when he's about to get in the fight and he's just got his mean fight face on.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things to see in all of MMA.
Yeah.
So he started with talking about how he parted with Jackson Winklejohn,
Mhm.
and that he loves Greg Jackson, lots of loyalty there, and he thinks Greg Jackson has done a great job, but that Winklejohn was just the worst person in the world and had no business in any part of an MMA gym.
Just wasn't growing it, wasn't bringing anything new.
Yeah, was allowing bums off the street to come in and train with top level guys, which seemed a little weird to me. I don't know if that's the case, but I guess it was open to anyone. The gym was open to anyone as long as they paid their money, but they wouldn't be actually training with these top level guys. But what I'd heard after was that they would have a large mat where they'd have multiple different groups training together.
Yeah.
So, you could accidentally get some guy gets pushed into you, then he, lands a foot on your head, I suppose.
Yeah.
That was the risk there, which is not good.
And no, when you're training for a professional UFC fight, you can't have mishaps
Right.
like that.
And so then the big thing was they decided that they were going to train and corner Mike Perry,
Mhm.
right, for the upcoming fight against Cowboy Cerrone. And he'd been training there for 10 years or so,
Yeah.
Although less in the last couple
Since
years.
he built his ranch.
Yeah, since he built his ranch, which, he says he's training there less because the environment isn't good, but they're like, what the fuck, you're not paying us money.
Right.
We've got to train other fighters.
Yeah, we gotta get paid too.
Yeah, I kind of can see their,
And this
Their
Mike
point.
Perry is an up and coming fider. He's
yeah,
all kinds of heart. He's
Yeah.
knocking
Awesome.
dudes out left and right.
yeah, he's had some great fights.
Yeah.
But I can kind of see both sides. I don't think it's as one-sided as Cowboy kind of makes it out to be.
No.
Obviously that's his perspective, and he's passionate about it, and it's not. You can't say he's wrong to feel how he feels, and maybe they should have passed on Perry and not have cornered just for this one specific fighter. Maybe not have. But at some point, they're going to have to be training. If Cowboy's not going to train there anymore, they're going to have to be training guys that fight Cowboy.
And then there's the fact that Cowboy is an aging fighter and Mike
Yeah.
Perry is an up and coming fighter.
True.
Cowboy, as great as he is, I mean, we're not looking at a young lion anymore.
Yeah, true. Been knocked out, 3 of the last 4 fights.
Yeah.
Um,
Hang on, I have his stats here. Not knocked out.
lost 3 of the last
Yeah.
4.
Yeah,
And knocked out, I
one-
think, 2. Like Till, who's about to fight tonight.
Yeah.
We're about to go watch Darren Till. I hope he destroys Woodley.
Oh, I can't wait for someone. I'm done with Woodley a little bit. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I liked him on Rogan. He
Yeah?
was a good guest on Rogan
Yeah.
a while back. But I don't know, kind of boring and a little too muscly for my taste.
Well, I mean, he was exciting, but I feel like I haven't seen him be exciting for quite a while.
Yeah, and no, that's obviously part and parcel with having to fight Wonder Boy,
Mhm.
and you can't charge in on Wonder Boy. You have to be careful, and you have to let Wonder Boy come to you. So
and he did that twice.
Yeah,
So, I mean-
smart fighting, I guess. And as Joe's talked about, it's he did more damage than Wonder Boy did. A lot of people say Wonder Boy won that fight because Wonder Boy like landed more and was on the offense more than Woodley was.
Yeah.
A more percentage of time,
Mhm.
but he didn't do as much damage as
No.
Woodley. Woodley nearly had him knocked out,
And Woodley was never really hurt.
and Woodley was never really hurt. So
He was
I
pretty
think
well fine.
yeah, I agree with the decision there. Woodley won the fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was actually no. We got to also talk about the story he told about nearly dying when he was scuba diving.
That's right.
That was such an amazing story. I guess he's like a master level scuba diver and has done all kinds of crazy stuff. And the craziest of all crazy scuba diving is when you go down in the water and then you go in a cave that's under the water.
Yeah.
And so he went into a cave and I'm not sure exactly how it happened, but you follow a line when you go in there, and then once he got like a couple rooms deep, some like of the silt in the floor got kicked up, and then it was like you're not seeing your hand in front of your face. Once you have to wait for it to settle, but you don't have air in your tank to wait for it to settle, so you got to find your way out of there. And that was a harrowing tale. Obviously, he lived to tell the tale.
Yep,
So
He's a great storyteller.
Spoiler alert! Yeah, he totally is. When they first started talking, I was like, "Ooh, can you tell Cowboy's been hit in the head a few too many times?" But by the end of it, I was like, "No, he's just a good old boy. They're drinking beers, drinking the Budweisers, and definitely
Chew and chew.
yeah, chew and chew." Which Joe, I guess, the initial first time like swallowed a whole bunch.
Oh my God.
That's so gross. Yeah, how you do that and not throw up? Because he said he was fine. Beyond me.
I mean, it's Joe Rogan.
Yeah, he's a pretty tough guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I could take him, but he would mop the floor with you.
Yeah, I have no chance. You maybe.
If I could sit on him,
Yeah.
I might have a chance. Get on top.
Oh my.
So that was MMA show 39. Next one was 1164 Mikhaila Peterson,
The daughter of Jordan Peterson.
daughter of famed Jordan Peterson. So the first little bit, they talked about what it's like to have Jordan Peterson as your dad, who has become famous in his 50s and one of the most disagreeable characters and misrepresented characters.
Kind of infamous. And
Yeah. I know Joe talks a lot about how he's misrepresented by media and by people that don't understand his arguments. I've listened to probably 20 hours of him speaking on his beliefs, and he makes some jumps. Like I agree with him on a lot of different things. But he's like, he says that, I guess to recap for our listeners, if you haven't heard Jordan Peterson ever talk, he got famous because there was a law being made in Canada at the universities where they wanted to force people to use whatever pronouns the person, so you'd be compelled. If I say, Shane, my pronoun is coaster, you have to use coaster as my pronoun by law, or else you could be charged with a hate crime. Right. And he was super against that, saying that you can't compel speech because that leads to Maoist China and crazy bad things.
for sure, freedom of speech is number one.
I totally agree with that. I mean, also, don't be a dick. If somebody wants you to call them something, you call them by that thing that they want.
Yeah.
I can understand how with transgender people, it's traumatizing for them to be called by an assumed gender. And if somebody asks you to try to call them she or he or zer or they or whatever it is, you should try to do that to not be a dick.
Yep.
So he got like flamed by people who were like, "You're being a giant dick," and he was not saying that he wasn't going to try to call people by whatever genders, although he did say sometimes that some of the more recent ones, the weirder ones,
Yeah.
the Zers and Ziers and
Yeah.
Zaires, he was not really down with.
Kind of nonsense.
Yeah, and so you know, he was being a little bit of a dick, but his bigger issue was with the like legality of like, you know, our government forcing us to use certain language.
Yeah. I'd have to say I agree.
Yeah, well, me too.
We're talking criminal records.
Yeah, absolutely. It's ridiculous. So, anyways, that's Jordan Peterson in a tiny little nutshell. Mikhaila Peterson, the biggest thing that they talked about was her diet.
Mm-hmm. She's a food blogger.
Yeah, and she's on this carnivore diet because she's had some like terrible like problems with her health, her joints. If she eats anything that isn't meat, her joints go crazy, and then she gets explosive diarrhea.
And then along with it, terrible depression.
Yeah, terrible depression, probably the worst of all the things. So she started by eliminating a whole bunch of, you know, gluten and stuff like that, and had some like slight benefits. But then eventually just worked her way down to just only eating meat.
Meat and mostly just red meat.
Yep. Which seems like, I would have assumed too before I'd heard of this that you would die from malnutrition.
Well,
if you
scurvy.
Yeah, scurvy. You have to have vitamin C from, you know, some oranges, and you have to have leafy green vegetables for whatever the iron. And is that what scurvy is? Is a lack of iron? Is an iron deficiency?
Something like that. Yeah.
It's definitely some vitamin deficiencies.
Because they would live off just fish on the ocean.
Yeah.
Way back.
Yeah. So if you're going to do the meat diet, not just fish,
Yeah,
but apparently just cows is hunky dory.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. But for her, right, for the average Joe, maybe not, right? She's a special case.
Right.
So I'd love to hear about the carnivore diet from some other people.
Yeah, and there are other people out there doing it. They talked on the show about other people that are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if anyone's done it like long term. Like, can someone do that for 5 years?
Yeah.
Or 10 years?
I'd love to see the results.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
My guess is that it's not sustainable.
No.
You have to start getting, but although supplements are getting better and better, and maybe you can do it with just supplementing vitamins.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And then they also talked about the nightshade family, and you hadn't heard of that term.
Not at all.
Right?
I still don't quite understand why it's called nightshade exactly.
I don't know why it's called nightshades, but I know that my grandma was super, allergic, and it's like bell peppers are part of it, and like I think potatoes and tomatoes might be as well. I don't remember.
You did say tomatoes.
Yeah, I don't remember all the things, but I definitely heard nightshades from in my family, and they were saying maybe it's a Canadian thing because she was from Canada. Joe had never heard of nightshades.
That's right.
But you're from Canada, so now we're like, I guess we're 3 for 2.
I didn't really grow up with my parents growing a whole lot of gardens, though. Like, there was a couple growing up, but I wasn't really involved in them either.
Right, fair enough. Anything else to say about Mikhaila Peterson? Kyla?
No, it was pretty much, that was the whole thing of the
3 out of
podcast.
5? 3 out of 5 eyes?
I'll give her the 3.
Yeah, I don't go as high as 4. Did we rate Cowboy? I'd give Cowboy 4.
I think you always get the 4.
We might get 4.5.
Yeah. No, that was a great
episode. And then the last one of that week, Tom Papa.
Yeah.
I love Tom Papa.
Good old cheery Tom Papa.
Baker extraordinaire.
Yeah.
He was on there talking a lot about his new show, Baked, that's going to be coming out, and which features him going to different restaurants that bake and talking to them about their baking process and sampling some of their food. Sounds like a great job.
Yeah, perfect for him.
Yeah, perfect for him.
Yeah,
perfect
obviously.
for me. I love baking.
Oh man, do I miss bread and baking this week? I've been on the keto diet for just about 7 days.
For a week of keto.
It's been good.
Joe would be proud.
I hope so.
Yeah, he'd be very disappointed in me. my level of self-control with my diet.
I would never have heard of the keto diet if it wasn't for Joe, or at least I'd be just like most people. I've been hearing about it for 2 years now.
Yeah,
but a lot of people, it's pretty new.
It's
for
getting
a lot of people.
Yeah, it's definitely getting bigger now.
Mm-hmm.
So they talked about Tom Papa. They talked about Louis C.K.'s return to stand-up and whether it was a dick move to go in and just like without any warning start doing stand-up for a bunch of people in a club,
or even an apology.
Well, he did apologize before. Yeah. now his apology was widely ridiculed and not accepted by many women. I thought, and I think I don't know if they talked about it on this episode, but they talked about what's that Instagram guy that's super hilarious? He does like Kyle, and he does like Donald Trump, and Kyle Dunnigan.
That's it. Yeah, Kyle Dunnigan.
Kyle Dunnigan has a video of Louis talking to Trump. So fucking funny. I think they played it on the podcast actually.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, definitely. I went and watched that on Instagram, and hilarious. And it's true. Like it is a, considering what he was in trouble for, of kind of masturbating in front of women without their consent, to then go into a room and start doing stand up in front of a bunch of people without kind of making sure that it was cool and like letting people know, hey, I'm going to be here at this time. If you want to come see me, come. Which I guess I do understand. In comedy, that's just largely how they do it. They just show up at clubs.
But with his situation,
probably could have been a little more sensitive.
Those people were kind of tricked or had in a way there. Like, nobody asked for some Louis C.K. comeback.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would have loved to be in that crowd. But
me too. I would have been like, wow,
this is amazing.
But, yeah. So do you think that Louis should be forgiven for what he did, or do you think we should hate him forever?
Ultimately, yes.
Yeah. But
I'm not sure that it was time yet.
Yeah.
I mean, it's happened now. So like, whatever.
Maybe he needs some more like statements kind of about it and acknowledging his issues.
I heard someone talking somewhere about it, and I agreed that he should have waited a little longer and then come back and actually addressed it.
Yeah.
Had it be his act.
Mm-hmm.
It should definitely be in the act.
Yeah. Give it a year and then come up with a new hour and have your first 15 minutes like, hey, I did this fucked up thing. It's almost ruined my life, all the bad things he feels about it.
Yeah. Yes, I'm a little hilarious redheaded little troll that'll jerk off in your face sometimes. But
yes, he is.
But he's funny.
So then they also talked about getting a shelter out in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And Rogan was saying that he's like, man, I can't do that because I'm married. But I was thinking to myself when he was talking about it, I'm like, Rogan, you have like bajillions of dollars. You could easily get, how much does a shelter in the woods cost? $1,000?
Oh, God.
$20,000? Like, yeah, just super cheap. Those tiny houses, they were looking at a 330 square foot house, which is like literally an eighth of the size of my house.
Yeah.
And I was like, you can definitely do that. But I think what he was talking about was he couldn't actually move out and live there. He could definitely buy one and go and have like vacations there and whatnot.
Yeah.
And he's Rogan. He could buy a 2,000 square foot cabin and as a super pimp that he could bring his whole family out there with.
Buy the lake and the mountain and build a freaking mansion out there.
That's what he should do. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. They were talking about that. And then of course, Radiolab episode about Fritz Haber and the Haber method came up. And I was thinking it would be cool if we had like a running statistic, like, okay, this is how many times Joe Rogan has brought up Radiolab, and this is how many times he's brought up the Haber method specifically. Because I know like it must be dozens of times that he's brought up Radiolab. For sure dozens. Haber method, maybe 10.
Yeah.
Maybe 5. I don't know, somewhere in there.
Another example is like when he's talking about that hardcore history with
Dan Carlin. The Mongols.
The Mongol story. That thing's come up a bunch of times.
Oh man, the Mongols story though. Have you listen to that?
Those podcasts are amazing.
Those podcasts are great. Subscribe to Hardcore History.
I think you pay for those ones now. I think they're $1 a download.
Yeah,
but
he rotates through though, where he'll put them up again for free.
Oh really?
Yeah, I've seen them up again for free before.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, because I think he always has like the 10 most recent, or at least the 5 most recent, and then maybe another different 5.
Oh yeah,
that you can.
Oh sweet.
Yeah, I listened to him without paying.
Well, I did too, but this was years ago.
Fuck you, Dan Carlin.
You get my money.
Yeah. It's a podcast. It's supposed to be free, damn it.
Yeah.
So yeah, Tom Papa talked about that. And then the last thing on that episode that I thought was cool, they talked about was that hobbies are good for you, and it's good to give your mind things to do and to be learning new things. You shouldn't just get into one sort of rotation of the same thing every single time. I think that gives you Alzheimer's, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and I mean, just spices up your life a lot.
Yeah.
To have some different things happening. I mean,
good for your brain, good for your morale, and yeah, good for your general outlook. I think to be learning new things.
For sure.
I guess you're doing a new thing now with this keto
Yeah.
diet. What's the last thing you learned?
About keto?
No, just in general.
Last thing I learned. I mean, I listen to Joe Rogan all the time. What's the last
You
episode?
learned- yeah. What about the last skill that you developed?
Okay, the last skill. I mean, this one's a brand new one for me, and something I've been interested in doing for a long time, actually.
Right.
And so there's that. But I picked up drawing again. I used to draw a lot when I was a kid, and over the last couple of years, I've been.
No, I don't think that counts.
No, that's an old one.
Podcasting.
That would definitely be an old one.
we'll accept podcasting.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's. I've been getting way more into golf again in the last few years. I fucking love golfing. So fun.
Golf's sweet.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
terrible at it though.
It's really hard. There's like so many factors that are all contributing to like a good golf shot. And it's just like it's one of the hardest games, and there's such minute levels of improvement. Year after year after year. So I love it for a lot of reasons. But
You play quite a bit.
the last few years I've been playing like 40, 50 rounds a year.
Oh, that's quite a bit.
Which is, yeah, like most weeks I'll get out for a round, sometimes two.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, I've been lucky. I had a friend that I was able to play virtual golf through the winter. So that helps get the rounds into, although it's not quite the same as playing outside.
Yeah.
But yeah, love golf.
That's a great way to spend a sunny day in the summertime.
Absolutely. You can have beers if you want to, or you can not have beers, but
Yep.
a Bud Light Lime on a sunny day on the golf course. Man, that's one of my favorite things in the world.
Yep.
Anything else you want to say about Tom Papa?
No, I mean, good old Tom Papa.
Kind of sounds like my friend Andrew Scott, who's also just started a podcast called It's a Conspiracy. I would urge our listeners to go check that out. And I was actually talking to Andrew about potentially doing a crossover episode where we all record. There's a handful of friends that I have here that are into podcasting, and we all record an episode together, and then we can all release that episode on all our.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
A little swap cast.
I know they do that a lot in like the Death Squad as well.
Yeah.
So look forward to that, listeners. Thank you again for listening. Please, if you want to reach out to us and follow us on all the social medias, you can search. It's Rogan Report, but it's also at Rogan Report Pod, I think, for Instagram and
Twitter. And if you want to send us an email, we're the Rogan Report at gmail.com.
The Rogan Report at gmail.com. That's a great way to get a hold of us. Website, theroganreport.com. And
like our Facebook page.
Yeah, like our Facebook page, which is The Rogan Report.
The Rogan Report.
At The Rogan Report. It'd be nice if we could just have at The Rogan Report for everything.
Yeah, we're gonna have to hunt these people down that have these handles.
Yeah, we'll figure that out in the near future. But thanks so much, guys. We'll be back again shortly with episode 3, recapping another crazy week of Joe Rogan podcasts. Elon Musk coming up. That was definitely a highlight for me. I also really like Larry Sharp. So we'll be recapping that for you and getting that episode out to you very shortly. Thanks, guys.
Sounds good. We'll see you soon.
Joe Rogan's unique perspective is teaching us all how to best live, and we will attempt to recap all of his weekly podcasts. Now show your support and download the Rogan Report. The Rogan